Courtney, that was bloody fantastic.
Thank you.
Let me tell you something, Courtney. Something has changed in you.
In a moment that left audiences stunned and social media in a frenzy, Simon Cowell, widely known for his cold, calculated critiques and near impenetrable demeanor, was seen visibly emotional, even wiping away tears, after a private revelation involving Courtney Hadwin surfaced backstage during an industry panel in London last month. While Cowell has weathered countless auditions, controversies, and career implosions without batting an eye, this was different. This was raw, human, and unfiltered. Sources close to the event described Cowell as shaken after hearing what Courtney had been through following her meteoric rise to fame post-America's Got Talent, a rise he himself helped orchestrate with the iconic golden buzzer that catapulted her into global stardom. For a man who rarely lets emotions override logic, Cowell's reaction hinted at something far deeper than just industry regret. It was the silent breakdown of a man confronting the dark cost of the fame machine he helped build. But what exactly did Courtney endure that reduced one of television's most unshakable figures to tears? The answer lies in a story that's as inspiring as it is heartbreaking. A story that begins not on a global stage, but with a trembling teenage girl and a voice that stunned the world. Before she ever made Simon Cowell cry, Courtney Hadwin had already stunned him and the world by transforming from a painfully shy teenager into a rock and roll powerhouse in a matter of seconds on the America's Got Talent stage in 2018. At just 13 years old, the girl from County Durham, England, walked nervously onto the AGT stage, barely able to make eye contact with the judges, her voice trembling as she introduced herself. But the moment the music kicked in, Courtney became unrecognizable, channeling the electrifying energy of Janis Joplin and the unfiltered chaos of vintage soul. She tore into her performance with such raw intensity that Howie Mandel, floored by the transformation, slammed the golden buzzer without hesitation. The clip went viral overnight, and millions around the globe were left asking the same question: who is this girl? But what many viewers didn't know was that Courtney Hadwin wasn't exactly a newcomer. Just a year earlier, she had competed on The Voice Kids UK, making it to the finals, and had already earned a reputation as a prodigious performer. This revelation sparked immediate controversy among AGT fans, with critics questioning the fairness of her audition and alleging that her backstory had been sanitized for American audiences. Even so, her undeniable talent silenced most doubters. Her performance was more than just good. It was transcendent, unpredictable, and unforgettable. She wasn't just a singer, she was a phenomenon. But as Courtney's star rose at warp speed, few understood the emotional toll behind the scenes. The same people who praised her performance overlooked the fragile teenager behind the firestorm, and that oversight would come back into focus in ways no one expected. While Courtney Hadwin's explosive talent made headlines and won standing ovations, the silent battle she fought off stage was one most fans never saw coming, a psychological struggle marked by anxiety, pressure, and identity crisis few teenagers could endure. Behind the ferocious stage presence and vintage swagger was still a young girl grappling with the overwhelming weight of sudden stardom, media scrutiny, and a public that expected her to deliver brilliance every time she opened her mouth. Despite being hailed as a reincarnated soul icon, Courtney repeatedly spoke of her intense shyness, her unease in crowds, and how she often felt like an outsider, even in the very industry that had celebrated her. Interviews revealed subtle cracks in the polished narrative. She admitted being uncomfortable with fame, often retreating from interviews and public appearances, choosing solitude over red carpets. Critics who once accused her of being too rehearsed or not as shy as she claimed failed to grasp the deeper truth. That performance was both her armor and her burden. The pressure to maintain the myth of the girl who transforms under the spotlight became a double-edged sword, leaving Courtney in a constant state of emotional whiplash. She had to navigate not just music, but expectations, labels, contracts, and the eerie realization that people were more fascinated by her transformation than by who she actually was. For a teenager, that confusion can be soul-crushing. And yet, through it all, she kept performing, kept releasing music, and kept trying to find a version of herself that wasn't just palatable to an audience, but honest to her own identity. But as we'd soon learn, the toll of being everyone's rock star darling would eventually push Courtney to a breaking point that even Simon Cowell couldn't ignore. Following her unforgettable run on America's Got Talent, Courtney Hadwin was thrust headfirst in the world of contracts, corporate expectations, and the suffocating machinery of the global music industry. An environment that for many marks the start of a dream, but for Courtney quickly became a tightrope walk between creative freedom and commercial pressure. She signed with Psycho Music, Simon Cowell's own label, and Arista Records, a major force in the industry, leading fans to believe she was destined for superstardom. But as time passed, what began as a promising partnership slowly unraveled into a quiet tug-of-war. Courtney's post-AG releases, while critically appreciated by niche audiences, struggled to find the same viral traction her television performances had enjoyed. Behind the scenes, murmurs began circulating about creative disagreements and the push to mold her into something more marketable, less raw, more polished. Courtney, however, had other plans. By 2022, she broke away from major label representation and began releasing music independently, taking to social media to announce that she was finally doing it my way, a phrase that signaled both liberation and subtle rebellion. But that freedom came at a cost. She cycled through management teams, including a brief stint with MN2's, only to part ways due to a lack of live bookings. The girl once seen as the next big global act was now battling for stage time, forced to navigate a landscape that no longer rolled out red carpets, but instead questioned her every move. It was a brutal reminder that talent alone isn't enough to survive the machine, and for Courtney, it became clear that she wasn't just fighting for a career, she was fighting to be heard on her own terms. And as that battle unfolded, Simon Cowell, the man who once catapulted her to fame, found himself watching from a distance until one moment shattered that distance forever. In early 2025, during what was supposed to be a routine industry roundtable in London spotlighting emerging independent artists, Simon Cowell reportedly found himself face to face with a moment that would haunt him. An unreleased behind-the-scenes documentary clip of Courtney Hadwin candidly recounting her post-age struggles was shown to a closed group of executives and insiders, and according to those in the room, it was unrude. It was an onion, endured after her brush with overnight fame. The footage, raw and unfiltered, showed a teary-eyed Courtney speaking not of applause or accolades, but of isolation, missed opportunities, broken promises, and the feeling of being discarded after the cameras stopped rolling. She spoke of industry figures who didn't get her, of being pushed to perform songs that didn't feel like her own, and of navigating a world where vulnerability was punished instead of embraced. For Cowell, who had once heralded her as a superstar in the making, the emotional weight of her story reportedly hit like a freight train. One witness described him as visibly shaken, tearing up, and unusually silent after the clip ended, an uncharacteristic display of emotion from a man who built his reputation on brutal honesty and industry pragmatism. While Cowell has never publicly commented on the incident, insiders claim he later reached out privately to Courtney's team with a heartfelt message of support, acknowledging that perhaps the system failed to protect her, or at least misunderstood her. It was a rare, almost poetic twist. Simon, the kingmaker, confronted with the human cost of the machine he helped build. And though Courtney herself hasn't publicly addressed Cowell's reaction, her recent interview suggests a quiet vindication that her decision to go independent, to reject the mold, and to speak her truth had finally made the right people listen. The emotional ripple that Courtney Hadwin's testimony sent through the industry and to Simon Cowell himself was more than just a moment of individual reckoning. It cracked open a much larger conversation about how the entertainment world elevates young talent only to leave them floundering once the spotlight fades. Industry analysts, former contestants, and even veteran artists have since begun weighing in, noting the alarming pattern of teen prodigies being thrust into the public eye with little psychological support, only to be dropped when their novelty wears off. Speculation is now mounting that Cowell's tearful reaction wasn't just about Courtney, but about dozens of other names who slipped through the cracks after serving their purpose on talent shows. Some insiders even suggest that Courtney's case may have triggered internal audits within Psycho and other major labels regarding how young artists are developed and protected. Meanwhile, fans on social media have reignited conversations around the cost of the golden buzzer, questioning whether these televised accolades are blessings or long-term curses. Was Courtney failed by the system, or did she merely fall victim to the impossible expectations placed upon viral sensations? Did Cowell's emotional moment stem from guilt, empathy, or simply the painful realization that raw, non-conforming talent like Courtney's doesn't fit the sanitized formula the industry prefers? Though no definitive answers have surfaced, one thing is clear. Courtney's story, and the quiet storm it triggered, has forced even the most hardened moguls to pause and reflect. Her journey now stands as both a cautionary tale and a rallying cry for a better, more human approach to nurturing young artists. And in a business that rarely slows down to look back, this rare moment of introspection may just mark the beginning of a long, overdue shift. As the dust settles around Courtney Hadwin's revelations and Simon Cowell's unexpected emotional response, the world is left to reconsider not just the trajectory of one artist, but the entire ecosystem that bursts and sometimes breaks stars in the making. Courtney, now in her 20s and fully independent, continues to release music on her own terms, with her debut album, Little Miss Jagged, being hailed by critics as her most authentic work yet, a gritty, unfiltered exploration of identity, rebellion, and resilience. Her lyrics, once shaped by external handlers, now speak to a lived-in truth that only experience could write. Meanwhile, Cowell's rare vulnerability has sparked introspection across a notoriously cutthroat industry, raising uncomfortable but necessary questions. How many Courtneys have we lost? How many brilliant young voices were silenced by formulas, reshaped into commercial shadows of themselves, or pushed to conform to expectations they never asked for? In Courtney's case, the role was never about perfection. It was about rawness, defiance, and the courage to reclaim her narrative. And perhaps that's why Cowell, who's built an empire defining what makes a star, was finally brought to tears. Because Courtney didn't just chase success. She challenged its definition. Her story isn't just about a missed opportunity or a failed investment. It's about the humanity we too often forget exists behind viral clips and trending moments. As she continues to carve out her space, one truth remains. Courtney Hadwin didn't just survive the system. She outgrew it. And in doing so, she may have left the industry with something far more valuable than ratings, an unflinching reminder that the strongest voices are often the ones brave enough to go unheard until they're truly ready to speak.